us. I just want to welcome everybody to Dance Talk with Joanne Carey. It is Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022. My name is Joanne Carey. I have been in the dance industry for more than 30 years. I'm a dancer, a dance teacher, a master instructor, a published author, NTC, ABT, NTC certified. And now I do this podcast on the Instagram Live platform, which I have been loving. And tonight we have a really special guest. I see all our friends are joining. Valarie, I think you have a lot of friends on who are waving to you. Before I get started, I just want to let everybody know that my guest this evening, Valarie Joanne, she is our guest this evening, and she has a motto that she says that it's okay to be okay. Valarie reached out to me in the beginning of January. I had actually run a little ad for those wanting to tell their story, their dance story on Dance Talk. I've been interviewing professional dancers, dance studio owners, and I had put the call out there for those who have a really special dance story, how dance has affected their life. And Valarie reached out to me, and she has a really wonderful, beautiful story that I'm really anxious to let you all learn and hear about and share and just really be inspired by her. She's very inspiring. So I am actually going to let Valarie in here so you can all get to meet her. Let's see when she gets on in. See? There she is. Hi, Valarie.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I was just saying to everybody who you are, but I want to give you a moment to just briefly introduce yourself before we get into your whole story. So if you could go ahead and tell everybody who you are.
Well, my name is Valarie Joanne. I live in New Jersey with my 4 kids. We all dance. I teach ballet and I take ballet at another studio. All of my kids do ballroom and Latin dancing. Some of them do modern and hip hop. My youngest is a contortionist.
I saw those pictures.
Yeah, so we're just like a big dance family. Yeah. I think it's just in our blood. My grandmother, she got me into dancing when I was 2, and she danced her whole life. So pretty much our whole life revolves around dance.
Yes, great. So I just want to take everybody back and just give them a little bit about you. Valarie comes to us. She has a really unique story. It's a real beautiful story. Valarie, not only does she have 4 beautiful children, and I can say that because I've seen the pictures. I haven't met them, but they really are extraordinary. It looks like a really beautiful, strong family that you have. And Valarie, in, I believe it was 2019, lost her husband to cancer. We're going to talk about that. And then I believe it was it in the spring of 2021 that you had been diagnosed with breast cancer? I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, it's actually, I think tomorrow will be exactly a year since I was diagnosed.
1 year. So Valarie, as you can see, she's a fighter and she's a thriver and she's really a positive energy, and we're going to get into all that. What I want to talk about and take you back before we get into for your losses, and I do want to just take a moment to acknowledge them, Valarie. I really want to. It's a vulnerable place to share your story. It's a vulnerable place to put it out on Instagram. But I know you are really committed to sharing your story to help people and inspire people. So I really thank you.
Exactly.
Really, thank you for your vulnerability. But take us back, because this is Dance Talk, take us back to when you were little with your grandma and how you got into dance.
It's actually really funny because I'm sitting here in my office, which is also my podcast studio, and I have this on my top shelf. This is my first tap shoe.
Oh,
and it is so tiny. So this is when I started dancing. When I first started dancing, I always did ballet. I also did tap. And then as I got older, I got into lyrical and a few other things. It was always, she just always danced. So I grew up dancing even in the same show with her. I have pictures of us both all dressed up with costumes and makeup and jewelry doing the same shows. So from the time I was 2 until 17, I did ballet. And I was in the Nutcracker every year. I danced with the Philadelphia Children's Ballet Academy, which was in Northeast Philadelphia, where I grew up. It was amazing. And then I stopped dancing. I stopped ballet when I was 17 and I switched over to kickboxing.
Which is quite a switch, which is it's so different. How did
Just a
that
weird
happen?
teenage thing. I don't really know. My family was not happy. They thought I was going to audition for the Pennsylvania Ballet and that would be my career, my life. So they were kind of confused. I didn't really know what to tell them. I just said I'm switching over. And that was it. I just completely gave up ballet when I was 17 and I didn't dance at all for 21 years.
21 years, and that's a long time, because if we have dancers on who are listening, I'm sure, and those who aren't in the dance field, to be away from dance for 21 years is a really long time. Although there's muscle memory, and we'll talk about that too, that's a really long time to leave your training. I know even a week or two, if you're dancing and you come back to dance after a week or two absence, there's a change in what you're able to do. So the commitment that you put into coming back to dance is huge. So continue your story.
Well, I think a lot of it was, I have 4 children and obviously I'm a lot older and I just told myself, that's ridiculous. I can't go back to dance. I haven't done it in so long. That's just weird. Like, who does that? What adult with 4 kids, goes back to ballet? It's just, I just kept telling myself it was ridiculous. It wasn't going to happen. I would take my kids to see the Nutcracker every year and I would just sit there crying because I missed it so much. And I would just remember being in the Nutcracker and they would look at me crying and they're like, why don't you just dance? And I'm like, I don't know if I can, I really didn't know if it was possible. And so
one of your kids is saying, love you, Mom, right now. I'm not sure.
I love you, Natalia. She's the best.
Love you, Mom.
Yeah. I love you too. So yeah, I didn't dance at all for 21 years and I just looked at myself as a mom and I made sure all of my kids were dancing and had, everything taken care of. But then everything that happened in 2019, I had this, so let me just go back to 2019. Sure. So my husband passed away April 25th, 2019. In hospice after battling stage 4 esophageal cancer for 9 months. So obviously that was devastating for myself and my kids and my whole family. And then 16 days later, one of my best friends who lived one house over from us passed away. And that was just surreal that even could happen so close together. So the kids and I were just stunned that happened. And after that, I did go through a period, it was probably about 2 months where I needed to sleep. And so I would drop the kids off at school. I would go home, I would get in bed, and then I would just set my alarm in time to pick them up. And then I would just go through the motions of everything I had to do, homework, dinner, dance. And then as soon as they went to bed, I jumped right back into bed. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just needed it.
Yeah.
It was very healing.
It's exhausting. Grief and sadness and tragedy, that's exhausting. It really takes a lot out of your body.
And even actually just being a caregiver for 9 months with the medications, we didn't really sleep. I had to set alarms for pain medication. And I was just mentally, emotionally, and physically completely depleted on all levels. So I needed to sleep. And then after I felt like, I kind of rejuvenated from sleeping and I rested, I had this actual moment where I was in bed, the kids were at school, I was home alone, and I just thought, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to just come home and get in bed. I don't want to do this. I don't like this. But I had this actual physical feeling in my body that the grief was trapped and needed to come out. And it was just so interesting because it was such a clear message in my mind that was like, you need to go back to ballet and you need to dance on point shoes. And that's how you're going to grieve. That's what came to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just going to go with this because this has to be coming from somewhere. So I went to the ballroom studio, Universal Ballroom Dance Center, where my kids have been for 8 years. This September, I think it'll be 9 years that my older kids. So they've been doing competitive ballroom and Latin dancing there since they were 6. But Sandra, the owner, has a history in ballet. She started out as a ballerina, so I knew she would understand where I was coming from. So I went to the studio one day, and she obviously knew everything that we were going through. And I said, look, this is going to sound crazy. I haven't done ballet in 21 years, but I need to do it. This is how I'm going to process my grief and move forward and bring joy back into my life. I need to do this. And she said, that's fine. We'll start private lessons next week. I'm like, and the other thing is, I need it to be in point shoes. I had this vision. I had a song picked out already, and it had to be in point shoes. Like, just, that was just how I saw it.
You had the end point there. You were working towards that end vision you had.
Yeah, I had it all planned out in my head. And if anybody could help me make that a reality, it's Sandra.
Yeah.
So she said, go buy point shoes. We'll just figure it out. We'll see what happens. And it's just so interesting because I bought the point shoes and I started posting pictures on social media, you know, of me in point shoes taking classes, and girls that I danced with growing up with the Philadelphia Children's Ballet Academy were like, dude, how are you doing that after not dancing for 21 years? Because, you know, point shoes, that's a whole other level of dancing. That's not regular ballet. So, I mean, I could have technically hurt myself. I really honestly can tell you it was some kind of divine intervention that happened, because I did not hurt myself and I just got right back into it. And even looking back at the videos from practice and from the performances we've done, I'm like, how did I do that? Like, I don't, at the time I was just like, let's do this. But when I look back, I have no understanding of how that was even possible. So I just jumped right back into it. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It was just kind of funny because my kids didn't know that side of me, because all they knew was the mom side of me. So they were watching me dance on point shoes and they're like, oh, mom's a ballerina. This is crazy. They didn't know that side of me.
Right. What was it like for you then to share that side of yourself with them? You know, here you were, because I get it, like I completely get it. And I want to talk about, we'll go into talking about how movement really does help all those emotions come out of you. You know, they're so trapped within you, and to have them come out. But what was it like the very first moment you put those point shoes back on your feet? What was that like? And then what was it like having your children see you do that?
Well, I remember I went to the dance store, and we all go to the same dance store. So I walked in, so they know me, and I'm usually just buying stuff for the kids. And I said, I haven't worn point shoes in 21 years, so I don't know what you have available, but I need point shoes. And they were like, okay. So I sat there and I tried them on. I took some pictures, and it was a magical moment, you know, just to have them back on my feet. And it was like a piece of my soul that came back. I don't even know how to explain it. I was like, this is what I need to be doing. This is, you know, this is exactly.
And the fact that you were attentive to that, I think, is so important. You know, so often we're not attentive to things that are going to help us for no fault of our own. You know, it's just that we kind of, it becomes an idea and we kind of brush it aside. Or like you were saying, like, you're thinking this is crazy, or people, you know, might think that, but you just were like, no, I need to do this and I'm going to do this.
The feeling was so intense and so overwhelming. Like that, the only way I can explain it, it really felt like there was something trapped in my heart, in my chest. It was heavy and it needed to come out. And, you know, I went to counseling and I tried all these different things and it helped, but that feeling was still there. And it was just a very conscious thing. The thought was so clear. It was like, you need to go back to ballet and dance in point shoes, and you need to just find a way to do that. So,
and you did it, which is great, right? You know, a few weeks ago, I had on a dance therapist, a movement therapist, and we spoke about how the body traps pain and any. I'm sorry, I'm like nursing a cold, so I sound like all scratchy. I sound funny, you know. So, and we talked about that must, you know, not only do you have muscle memory when you have your technique and whatnot, but the emotions, and whether it's pain, joy, sadness, tragedy, it gets trapped within your body. And she talked about, you know, when she takes her clients through and her patients through the movement, they don't say anything. She just lets them move, and things rise up for them that they didn't realize, you know. And it's a beautiful form of therapy, and it's a beautiful, you know, I'm not a therapist, and I don't claim to be, but I do know, I've seen, and I'm sure you're experiencing this too, when you're dancing, and I've talked about this several times with several different guests, when you're dancing, something, like you're saying, takes over.
Yes.
Something takes over, and that's what I think makes the art so beautiful and really touches not only the dancer but the audience members on such a deep level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, well, speaking of the audience, so when Sandra choreographed a dance for the Christmas showcase, this gets really interesting. So it wasn't just me. My friend Sarah, who passed away, her husband Jack. Okay. Obviously, like I said, they lived one house over. So I just lost my husband, and he just lost his wife, who was one of my best friends. So when I was talking to Sandra about this dance and how it had to be on point shoes, I wanted to do lifts and spins, and I'm like, but I don't know anybody that can dance. I don't know any male dancers. So then I had this crazy idea. I'm like, I'm just going to ask Jack if he wants to try it out, and we'll see what happens. He's not a dancer. And then me not dancing for 21 years. I'm like, this should be really interesting. Sandra really had her work cut out for her with the two of us. And he said yes. And it was very healing for both of us because we would go to the studio once a week for private lessons. And the next thing you know, we're doing these crazy lifts, turns. I mean, I'm telling you, when I watched the video earlier today, and I'm just like, how did we do that?
That was the video you sent me, right? The video that's who you're speaking about, is that man? Video? Yeah.
So it was really emotional. Jack represented my husband, and my friend Paige was also in the dance, and she wore my wedding dress with angel wings.
Okay.
All four of my children were in the dance, and basically what happened was throughout the dance, I would dance by myself, I would dance with Jack, my kids, and Paige would dance in the background, and then at the end, Jack and Paige go off this way, and the kids and I walk out together in a line, representing that they're gone, but we still have to go on with our lives.
Yes.
So
the
audience
was just, give me goosebumps. Yeah.
It was so beautiful. Jack and I actually performed it for my grandmother in the nursing home right before she passed away from dementia. She actually passed away 3 days before the Christmas showcase. But we got to perform a private show for her at the nursing home, which was amazing. She didn't see me dance for 21 years. So she was amazing.
And this is your grandma who influenced your dancing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. So she was bawling, crying, and I ran up to her when I was finished, and I said, "What did you think?" And she said it was pure gold, and it was just this very emotional moment.
Yeah.
And then at the Christmas showcase, just everybody was bawling, and it was really beautiful.
Yeah. I think it's on your website too, isn't it? Is it on your website? You sent it to me. I know, but I watched it. I think it might be on your website. But what a gift that you and Jack were able to give to each other as well.
Yes, definitely.
To be able to be vulnerable and understand each other and help each other in the same way. Does he ever, has he ever expressed what dancing and that healing process for him? I mean, I know you don't want to speak for him, but has he ever expressed what that was like for him?
He's probably watching this if he wants to type something. I know it was very healing for the both of us. It was, just the fact that my husband passed away and my friend, his wife, passed away 16 days apart, was mind-blowing. So it really, honestly, the whole situation just reminds me of something out of a movie, you know, just the whole thing for us to dance and, perform. We even performed at a big event in Delaware in this beautiful ballroom, nice. And we just went for it. We were like, you know what? Like, what do we have to lose? We're just going to go for it. Yeah. It was magical. It really was magical. Is that what he said? Yeah, it was.
54 magical.
It was. Especially, the Christmas showcase was magical, but performing for my grandmom, literally right before she passed away from dementia was something I don't even have words to express how special that was.
Yeah, I want to talk about a little bit, especially for perhaps parents who have children who dance, who are listening now, going to be listening to the recording. So often, and you know this yourself, you have children who dance. How you get to the point sometimes where children have to choose their activities, right? And so often, as a dance teacher and a studio owner, it would break my heart when I would understand it, when a child would leave, when I would see so much potential in them, or just even the fact that I just saw how much dance really calmed them, or just they might come into the studio having a bad day at school, and then dance would just light them up, and then when they would leave that, I would just think, gosh, I wish, not that I want them to give up, choose something else, but it always hurt my heart, like, to have them give
I
up
totally
dance.
understand that. I dance at another studio as well, and two of my girls dance there, Amp to Dance, and Miss Dana is the owner, and she's fabulous. And she always says, leave it on the dance floor. If you're having a bad day, and we all have bad days, and she just says, leave it on the dance floor. Just work it out, move it, just keep moving.
Yeah. Now, where do you... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to, I'm all about like quotes, and I always screenshot things that I find. And I found this thing about dance, and I just loved it. It says, dancing is fighting against everything that holds us, everything that sinks us, everything that weighs us, everything that burdens us. It's both you and your body discovering their true essence, the very soul of life. It's your physical contact with freedom. And that's exactly how I feel about dance.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Really beautiful. That freedom, it does. Even if you're restricted to a storyline or a specific piece of choreography, there really is freedom within the movement. I talk about that. I mean, you can share, why does this touch you like that? Talk to us about that.
I mean, honestly, it's just, to sum it up, it's like movement is my medicine. Again, I love therapy. I think there is definitely, therapy isn't important, but there's something about moving.
Yeah.
And I talked about this with, I took a radical remission workshop, and one of the key elements is moving and exercise, and how healing it is. And, I know we're talking about dance, and not everybody can dance or wants to dance, but just movement in general is so healing on every level. So whether you walk or go to the gym, or, there's always something you can find that you like to do. Some people want to ride a bike, but for me, it's dance, and for all of my kids, it's dance. And
moving your body,
I mean, this is an intense statement, but it saved me. And so since it saved me, it really saved my whole family. Because I was in a dark place. And, my husband passed away when he was 41 years old. I never thought I would be a widow at, 39 years old. And then I have 4 young kids. So it really pulled me out of a dark place. And the practices that we would go to were so emotional that at some point, either Jack was crying, Sandra was crying, I was crying, we were all crying. It was just so, it was just so intense.
And, I just want to, commend you. And I don't even know if that's the right word, because I want people who are listening and who will be listening to the recording, because, a lot of people listen after the evening. And I know there's people who follow me, dancers who have breast cancer. And just to hear your testimony and to hear how much it means to you. And I know it means the same to them. And some of them I know, and I can't speak for them. I'm just, going by the, what they share on their own pages, not, to me personally, but just how, sometimes you need, it's hard to put that one foot in front of the other. It's like mud. It's like when you have tragedy or loss or grief or something horrible that has happened. And in your case, multiple after multiple after multiple things in a row, it could be, it could be debilitating, like completely debilitating.
It's like when they say, if you can't walk, run, if you can't, I don't know, run, crawl, like as long as you just keep moving, keep moving.
Keep moving.
Baby steps.
And I think it's so important, and I really hope they're listening, or they will listen to this, that you can do it. That if you're in that dark place, or that place that you feel like nobody is helping, you can do it. There's examples of people who are doing it. And it doesn't mean, like you said yourself, you've said it on several occasions, that, it doesn't mean you don't have a bad day. It doesn't mean in the privacy of your own bedroom, you're not sad or
It's
missing, or
always still there.
it's
And that's what I said.
there.
That's what I remind people. It's not that
Yeah.
you're throwing it away and you never think about it again and you're
Yeah.
just fine for the rest of your life. The grief it's
Yeah.
always there. I will never forget or, be okay with the fact that I lost, these important people in my life, and I still love them and miss them and think about them every day.
Yeah.
But, I have to keep going because I'm still here and my kids are still here. And that's what they would want. They would not want us to shut down. There's no purpose in that. But you brought up an interesting point about the breast cancer, because I started dancing again because of the losses I experienced in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2020, dance kept the kids and I going because of COVID.
Right. Of the pandemic,
but we kept going to the dance studio. Most of the dancers were just on Zoom, but I was still teaching ballet and Sandra was still teaching ballroom and Latin. We just kept it going, even though it was definitely weird and different. But we were still at the studio. So dance kept us going through COVID, and that was a really strange, depressing time for everybody. Kept us going through that. And then last year, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in March, and I had multiple surgeries. I had radiation. I had a double mastectomy. I had my tubes and ovaries removed. And throughout all of that, I kept dancing. And that's another way that I feel that it literally saved my life. It kept me going. It gave me a purpose.
Yeah. And normalcy, and a sense of normalcy, right? In the midst of all the things that aren't normal in life, it gave you this grounding, right?
Right. So it got me through the grief of 2019, and then COVID in 2020, and then breast cancer in 2021. And I just looked back and thought, oh my God, I don't even know where I would be or what would be happening right now, what my life would be like if I didn't start dancing back in 2019. So
and
it's
again,
just gotten me through so many hard things.
It really does. And I too, I started young. I didn't start quite as young as you did. But I've been dancing for over 30 years, and I had a studio for 23 years. I no longer have my studio, and I still take class every week. I still am in class every week, because I feel like if I don't, I feel like my body will like I don't know, do something.
Off.
Just do something.
It doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right if I'm not dancing. And I could be so tired, and I drive an hour to get to my ballet class, and I could be like having like, oh my gosh, this morning, I think, oh my God, I'm so tired. How you do that? Like, oh gosh, this is the last thing I want to do.
I take a class on Monday nights. Every Monday night I'm exhausted, but I still go, and then I feel amazing afterwards.
And you just feel like the weight of the world has been lifted off of you. Yeah. And I say that not to, not to make light of it or anything like that. It really is a special art. And I think the fact that you found it again, or it found you perhaps, is a really special thing. And I was looking at your pictures on your website, and I loved the ones. You'll have to tell me what they were. I was assuming it was during your treatment with I thought, wow, I think you probably made everybody feel really happy when you went, because you have it seemed like every time you had a different outfit on and different message,
Yes, I did. And I think I didn't realize it at the time, but then I was on a podcast called Cancer Talks.
Okay.
And while I was talking to them about it, it kind of occurred to me that I think I was able to be so positive during my cancer treatment because my husband was so positive during his cancer treatment, which I couldn't even understand. He had stage 4 cancer. His chemo was brutal. But he stayed positive. He was even joking around in hospice with the people that worked at hospice. Literally until the last day, he was joking around and positive. And that just stuck with me. And I guess it was on a subconscious level, though, because when I found out I needed radiation, they said you have to come Monday through Friday for 5 weeks. And I'm like, how is that even possible? I have 4 kids at home. It's summer, but I had to do it. So I don't know really how I came up with the idea, but I started off, I had a couple shirts set up for the first week. And then I thought, can I keep this going? Can I really come up with 25 different themes and shirts So I was determined. I had people making me shirts. I was ordering shirts on Amazon, and I had it all planned out. And it really changed my whole mindset. I would look forward to radiation the next day because I would put together an outfit with props and like some of them were hysterical, and the radiation therapist would get in on it. Like I had pink boxing gloves and my shirt said "Fight like a girl," and I pretended I was punching the one technician. And then for I had a shirt that said genetic mutations happen because I have a gene mutation, and one of the radiation techs got behind me and stuck her arm out, so it looked like I had 3 arms. But it would actually get to the point where I was excited for the next day because I don't, radiation was a lot of fun. I know that sounds crazy, but it was just a really fun time, and I documented every treatment. I would take pictures of the machine. I would take pictures, you know, of my outfits, and it was just to take the fear out of it for people. And I really believe this, that my mindset it helped me heal from my surgeries very quickly. Radiation had like no effect on me whatsoever. If anything, I felt better during radiation than I do in normal life, which the doctor said he's never heard anybody say that. I had so much energy. They kept telling me I was going to get really tired. I was going to have a horrible rash on my chest, which never happened. I had a tiny spot. And it really was like absolutely fine. And I think it was just because of my mind, and our thoughts do affect the cells in our body. People thought it was crazy. I had a double mastectomy with reconstruction, and 3 days later I was
which is painful.
It's intense. It's an intense surgery. I had drains on both sides of my body, and Sandra, the owner of the dance studio, was having her birthday party, and I really wanted to go, and my kids were performing, and I thought that's probably not realistic, but I'll see how I feel. And I went to the party, and I was dancing, and I just had a sweatshirt that covered the drains because I didn't want anybody to see that. But the people that knew I had the surgery were coming up to me like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "I wanted to see the kids perform. I feel fine." And then during radiation, I danced all throughout radiation. I felt totally fine. And actually, Christmas Day of 2020, I had my appendix taken out. That was my first major surgery.
Wow.
That was the most painful surgery, but I was back to teaching the next week. It just always gives me something to look forward to, and it takes my mind off of things. And I really feel like it just heals my body.
The teaching and the dancing.
And even after, when I had the mastectomy, they removed 3 lymph nodes on the right side, and they said most people have to go to physical therapy because your range of motion with your arm, your arm will only go halfway. But because I just kept dancing, they said your range of motion is completely fine. Just keep dancing. They said whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. So I never had to do PT for that. And then I had my tubes and ovaries removed in September, and that was like nothing. So the only explanation I have, and my doctors say the same thing, they said, we think because you're active and dancing and positive, that's the only explanation I have, because I really did not have a hard time with my treatment.
Really, really helps. And it sounds like too, I'm just having those images of you with all those different outfits on again as you're going to treatment. It sounds like you also made the people around you feel
we had a great time,
comfortable.
They would get so excited.
Which helps their job, because it's not a fun job to have, and I think people in that industry, they're very sensitive and caring. I think you have to be a really special individual to be on the cancer floor, and in hospice as well, right? And so I think the fact that you made their day not so gloomy, that speaks a lot too.
Amazing.
I
miss them. I'm like, yeah, come back and visit you.
Tell us about, because there was something on your website too, and the butterfly effect. And I was looking, it's funny because from the studio, I had a whole bunch of butterfly wings. I was like, where are, because I wanted, when you popped down, I wanted to have my butterfly wings on, and I couldn't find them. I was like, oh, the one time I can't find those stinking butterfly
I know, that's
wings.
how it is with everything with me. So it was interesting. I was supposed to have 25 treatments. I only completed 24 radiation treatments because then I got COVID, and I was really, really sick for about 2 weeks. It was really bad. So I was really upset because I missed my last treatment, and that was the one that I had set up to wear these beautiful rainbow butterfly wings. So my radiologist even called me and he said, "Oh, we're all so disappointed. We wanted to see what you were going to wear on your last day." And I'm like, it's a really good one. So he said, when you come back for your follow-up appointment, just bring them, you know, if you want to ring the bell, and we'll give you your certificate and everything. So when I eventually did go back, I wore the wings. I stood next to the bell. I didn't want to ring the bell. I just don't like the whole bell thing. I wanted to change it. So my thing was the butterfly wings. So I took a picture with those, and then I thought, you know what? First of all, so I found out some cancer centers don't even have a bell. So there's nothing for people to do to, you know, basically say I'm done my treatment and to acknowledge the end of their treatment, which I thought was kind of sad. At least a bell is something. I really like the wings because it just signifies, you know, transformation. You're done that part of your journey. And I honestly, I was talking to somebody about this earlier today. I feel stronger now. It was like an awakening, like being diagnosed with cancer, even though I saw my husband go through it. Me personally having cancer and going through that, it really pushed me to do what I think I'm here to do, my purpose. So after my last surgery in September, a couple days later, I started the podcast. I was like, okay, I'm ready now. Like ovaries are out, surgeries are done, radiation's done. Like I'm ready to go. Let's do this. So now I have a thing called the butterfly effect, where I will send butterfly wings to women for their last chemo or radiation treatment. And we have a woman, she tagged me on Facebook, and she wore the butterfly wings. And the awesome part is just even what the butterfly effect means, where, you know, one tiny change can make a big change. So, you know, I wore the butterfly wings, and then she wore the butterfly wings. So everybody on her Facebook page, you know, saw what she did. So she's inspiring people, and then that'll inspire somebody else, and it'll just keep going. But it's really just taking the fear out of cancer treatment. Not that it's fun, because it's not. And I'm not downplaying just because my treatment wasn't the worst case scenario. I have heard some horror stories, and I know it's really, really rough. But again, it's all about your mindset. So, you know, if they don't have a bell, or there's nothing for you to do to celebrate your last treatment, I think that's kind of sad. So if you have the butterfly wings and you take a couple pictures, I just think that's really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was really beautiful. And, you know, the pictures were beautiful. And so I was wondering, and I just have to say to everybody, I'm seeing everybody's messages, but I don't want to like reply, only because I don't want to miss what Valerie's saying. So I'm acknowledging everybody's wonderful, beautiful messages, but I just didn't want to miss what she was saying. So thank you, everybody, for all your kind thoughts and support. And Jeff64 said, we will send you some. So,
yes, we have lots of butterfly wings.
You know, but so where do you think you're going to go with all this? I know you said you found your purpose, and you really, you know your purpose in life, but with dance and ballet, and where do you like envision all this taking you? You know, I know that's a huge question, you know?
Well, things are kind of just happening. They're just unfolding every day. And I know it sounds so cliche, but I really do just trust the universe, because things have just been happening. Even the bad things that have happened, when I look back, I see why these things had to happen. And, you know, even being diagnosed with cancer really pushed me to start fulfilling my purpose. I've always wanted to write a book. I've had so many things happen in my life. You know, just, I mean, pretty much any topic you could think of that has to do with trauma or grief or whatever. I pretty much have been through probably a lot of those things. So, so the dancing, I always want to keep teaching. And I want to keep taking my classes, and my kids will keep dancing. The interesting thing is I started dance modeling at the weirdest time. So I was 40 years old, have 4 kids. My first photo shoot was after my double mastectomy, radiation, and COVID. I just recovered from COVID, and I did my first dance shoot, and I was kind of hooked after that. I was like, this is amazing. I loved the pictures. then I worked with a dance photographer last September. Then I was invited to another shoot, and I met another photographer. So it just kind of kept going. Then I brought my girls, and they started modeling.
Oh, okay.
So now we're working with consistently with another photographer, Bob. He's absolutely amazing. So Bob, if you're listening to this, or if you listen to it later, we love you. So the modeling has become a part of it, the dance modeling. And it's cool because it brings attention to my cause, and I can use photography and the images. You know, I've done even photo shoots with Bob where I wear the genetic mutation shirt, and I'll post it on groups in Facebook with a message about, you know, breast cancer or genetic mutation. So I use it for a purpose a lot of times. But ultimately, honestly, I do see, I want to finish my book. I want to continue with the podcast, but I just know at this point that my purpose and why I don't ever like to say why these things happen to me, because then it goes into a victim mindset, but why I experience all of these things in my life, and I'm still experiencing a lot of things. I just know that my purpose is to let people know that not only can you survive, you know, immense trauma, but you can thrive afterwards.
And be happy and filled with joy, right?
Very happy. I am happier now than I've ever been, which I know can sound really weird to a lot of people, and I understand. But actually, Dr. McHale tagged me in a video earlier today, and it was a woman saying that she lost her husband. And, you know, she said, I know people look at me because I'm so happy, and they just don't get it. And that's kind of where the it's okay to be okay comes in. A friend of mine, her father passed away, and we met up at a coffee shop about a week later. And I said, how are you doing? And she kind of whispered, because we were around other people, and she's like, I'm actually okay. And she's like, I know I'm not supposed to be okay, and everybody expects me to be really depressed, but she's like, I'm fine. And it just came out. I said, it's okay to be okay. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, nobody ever says that. Everything you see online says it's okay to not be okay. And we know that, of course, if somebody dies or you go through something traumatic, it is totally okay to not be okay. But nobody ever tells people it's okay to be okay. So actually, Jack made this shirt. I have it on. It's the it's okay to be okay shirt. And
very nice.
I gave one to Sandra. She recently lost her husband, and she totally gets it, because Jack posted a picture of the shirt on Facebook, and she left a long message explaining that she has days where she's okay. And you know, you do kind of have this weird feeling like people are going to look at me like I should judge you, judge me because I am okay and I'm dancing. And that's where the Dancing in the Rain comes in. And that's why, you know, my podcast is called Dancing in the Rain with Valarie, and my website, everything is called Dancing in the Rain, because, you know, trauma and grief, and these are inevitable things. They are going to happen. Nobody is going to.
We're living human beings, right?
We are human beings having this human experience on Earth, and I don't know anybody that has gotten through life without a traumatic experience happening. Some people have more than others, but the bottom line is we all have it. So then there comes a choice. So when a traumatic event happens, because it will, you either shut down or you're going to keep going and, you know, do something that makes you happy. For me, it's dance. But everybody has their own thing. And, you know, there becomes a time where there's a decision that you have to make.
You have to make, you have to make you do. You have to stand in that and do it. And you know, it's interesting because, you know, when I was thinking about you dancing in your pain and through your pain, what do you remember what that felt like, or what it brought to mind, or was it just this I don't even know, like esoterical feeling that you were having or experiencing when you were dancing through all your pain?
It's interesting because, like I said, at the practices, I hope Jack doesn't get mad at me for saying this, but he would cry the most, and then Sandra would cry sometimes, and I felt like I wasn't really crying, but it's because the dancing was so therapeutic for me that I was like, I feel great. You know,
it's like rings out. like with yoga,
Exactly.
you know how
It was
yoga,
coming out of my
yeah,
body with the
with
dancing.
the dance,
So,
yeah,
and I would look at them and I'm like, stop, you're going to make me
yeah,
cry. I'm actually fine right now. I'm
yeah,
actually okay right now because I'm
yeah,
dancing, you know?
yeah.
But
Because it
they
has to
had
come
their,
out. It has to come out somehow.
yes,
Whether it's tears or movement or something, it has to come out. And it's like yoga. I don't know if you practice yoga
I
at all,
do.
but you know how they say like it's like you wring out your organs and you wring out
Yes.
everything. It's that same thing. You're wringing out your body, and that's why I think those endorphins kick in, and you've just like let everything out. So I think that's why I think that's part of
And
it.
it's interesting that you brought that up. When I did the Instagram live with Dr. McHale,
Hmm.
that was, I think, an hour and a half after I found out that my grandma passed away. But I woke up the morning of my grandmother's funeral, which was February 10th, and I could not lift up my head. I was having like a spasm in my back shoulder area. I
Yeah.
could not lift up my head. I was in so much pain. But what's interesting about what you're saying, how
Mhm.
grief can get trapped, I knew
Mhm.
that's what it was. I didn't
Yeah.
do anything to hurt myself. The grief was just
Yeah.
trapped. It was just so much stress trapped in there.
Yeah.
So about a week and a half later, I watched The Notebook with my
Oh,
youngest daughter, Nadia.
yeah.
I bawled. I was
Mhm.
hysterical, crying for about 45 minutes
Mhm.
afterwards. And when I was done crying, I'm like, oh, the spasm went away.
Yeah.
It was like I
Okay.
needed a release.
Yes. Yeah.
I
And
just
they,
needed I
yeah. And
needed to
I
cry.
I heard one time too that if you don't cry enough tears, or if it doesn't come out of you, like it'll show up as itises, laryngitis, tonsillitis,
Oh, totally.
bronchitis, all those illnesses. That's why they'll say
Definitely.
after traumatic event to go to the doctor like 6 months out to see. If you don't get it out in some way. So it's just that, yeah, it's amazing, and I just am touched and thrilled that ballet was it for you, because I just
And
love that.
that's another thing I need people to understand, because I never want people to think at this point,
Mhm.
I know I sound strong, and sometimes I even talk about really serious topics like
Mhm.
rape and death and cancer. And it sounds like I'm just talking
Mhm.
about, the weather.
Mhm.
It's not that. I mean,
Oh,
I have had so
you've
many
done the
dark
work.
moments.
Yeah.
I've done the work, and I've
Mhm.
really did sit with my feelings, and I
Yeah.
really cried a lot. And sometimes I still do.
Yeah.
But like I said, I had 2 months of really intense
Mhm.
grieving, sleeping and crying and not eating.
Mhm.
And I really, really went through a lot of emotions.
Yeah.
And then after that, decision time came. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't want to do this anymore. And
Yeah.
I want to move and I want to dance.
Yeah.
And that was just a life-changing
Yeah.
decision for me.
Yeah. And I think too, what you're saying too, there's people who are private grievers and people who are public grievers. Both okay. Like I know
Right.
for me, I always say I'm a private griever, meaning, I won't be out there. Like, I think part of it, like you, I see so much of myself in you when you talk about how you handle grief and whatnot, that it's more in the privacy of where I feel safe in a space where, and by myself, often by myself.
Right.
And then I'm done. I pick up my life
Right.
and I
Exactly.
go. But I know for me, I've gotten it out and done what I've needed to do. Somebody said something to me once. You have to put things. Sometimes you can't have everything out there all the time. You have to sometimes put certain things on the back burner. It's like when you're cooking. You put it on the back burner because it's got to simmer a little while, and you get back to it in an hour or two when you can. And they
Right.
said to me, that's what grief can be like. It's not
Exactly.
always the tears and it just is
And
different
that
things for
brings up something I
everybody.
always say, that grief and joy can coexist.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, well, I'm going to cry about, these traumatic
Mhm.
events, or I'm going to be happy. You have both.
Both.
You have
Both.
both.
All
I
the
can go
time.
and
Yeah.
dance, and then I can come home and cry
Yeah.
because it's the anniversary of somebody's death, but I
Yeah.
can have it in the same day. And that brings up a really interesting story. My kids went to a bereavement camp the
Mhm.
summer
Okay.
after Mark and Sarah passed away.
Mhm.
And I really loved the lesson that they took away from that camp. They would do grief exercises and the kids would cry. one of the exercises was they put pictures of Mark and Sarah on milk cartons, and they made them into boats, and they put a little candle in the boat, and then they set them out onto a lake.
Wow, how nice.
And I wasn't there, but from what my kids told me and the counselors, all the kids were crying and they were feeling their emotions.
Yeah.
It's a very emotional thing. But afterwards, they went and made s'mores, and they were running around and having fun with their friends. And the takeaway from that was, you know, you do have to process your grief.
Yeah.
Like, you lost your dad, you lost two really important people in your life. You have to cry. It has to come out. But that's the grief part. But then the new friends that you just met at camp, you can go make s'mores and run around and have fun. And it's okay to be okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's okay too. So, you know,
what a great lesson.
Really
what a great lesson. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So let me just ask you this before we wrap up again, because there's just so much to talk about, and I really hope people take away, like you're saying, the inspiration that you are, and that you have both. You have both that go on, but you want people to know it's okay to be okay, and they should strive. Not, I shouldn't say should, but find people who will help them know it's okay to be okay. You were going to say something.
I just wanted to add one more thing, because it was really probably the most touching thing I've ever seen. So, for myself and Jack and the kids, we did our performance in 2019 in the Christmas showcase, and that was, for me, that was us dancing in the rain. We were dancing through our grief. But more recently, Sandra's husband passed away, and, we were at the funeral home, and it was a beautiful service. And then we went to the cemetery, and I just remember looking at her, and obviously it was a very sad moment. And, they were folding up the American flag, and they went over and gave it to her. And I just remember the look on her face, and, my heart was going out to her, and it was just such, a sad moment. And then afterwards we went to the dance studio, and I'll have to send you this video too, because it's just amazing. One of the kids she couldn't get there in time. So Sandra put on a pair of her husband's shoes and played music that he made, and she danced with the kids, and you can just see her face light up. And as I'm taping it, I'm just like, this is what Dancing in the Rain is all about.
Wow.
This is what it is. It's happening right in front of me. It was the most beautiful moment.
Yeah, what a gift.
It's really special.
Thanks for sharing that. And
it's just like so interesting that she helped me through losing my husband, and then sometimes she'll tell me that I'm inspiring to her and that I'm helping her through the loss of her husband, and the whole thing is just, like I said, it's kind of like a movie.
Yeah. Now, what do you think? Like I'm a believer, and I get the sense that you are, that Mark's around. He's watching out for you guys, and he's what do you think he's saying and tapping you on the shoulder about with all this?
Well, I don't know. I do feel that he's around, but my dad passed away when I was 25, and I had an interesting experience a couple months ago where my dad came to me, and I said, everything's messed up right now. I'm going through breast cancer treatment, and people are dying, and this, that, the other thing. And he said to me, everything is going to be better than you could ever imagine.
Wow.
And ever since I had that experience, that conversation with him in my mind, I have felt so at peace, and I just am letting things unfold the way they're supposed to. I really don't stress about things, and everything, it's like people are brought into my life at like the perfect time, and then that brings me to the next step, and it's just so interesting. And I just trust the universe. I really do.
That's good. Yeah. Well, thank you, Valarie. It's been really great, and it's been nice getting to know you, and thank you for waiting until March. Thank you for waiting.
Time flies. That went so fast.
Right? It was just January, and I was like, I'm booked all the way out until March. And here we are, right? There is an article coming out in tell everybody what it is in Collingswood. What is it? There's an article.
Oh yeah, they did a feature article on us. We're on the cover of Collingswood Living magazine. I think it's coming out March 16th. So it's a really beautiful picture of me and the kids on the cover, and then they did a whole story on us.
Everybody look for that. Maybe I'll try to remember to put in the when I do the write-up and put the recording back up, to put that in to remind everybody. But I just want to thank you again and wish you well. Please stay in touch. Can I
just end with a quote?
Yes, please.
This is my favorite quote, and I really feel like it relates, like everybody can relate to it. And for me, it just sums up life in general. And I read it on one of my podcast episodes, and I had so many people reach out to me, and they're like, what was that quote? I need to like write it down. Life is amazing, and then it's awful, and then it's amazing again. And in between the amazing and the awful, it's ordinary and mundane and routine. Breathe in the amazing, hold on through the awful, and relax and exhale during the ordinary. That's just living. Heartbreaking, soul healing, amazing, awful life, and it's breathtakingly beautiful.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
I love it. So
yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you again. And I wish you and your family well, be well, stay well, and please stay
can I just give my podcast information?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. And send it to me also, because then I can put it into
So the podcast is Dancing in the Rain with Valarie. It's Valarie. It's pretty much on every platform. And then the website is dancingintherrainwithvalarie.com. And then the YouTube is the same thing, Dancing in the Rain with Valarie.
Okay, perfect.
So, sorry, I almost forgot that. Jack.
We don't want to forget that. And we'll put it in. I'll first put the recording up, and then I'll do the write up, and then I'll put the write up back in. But again, thank you so much, and thank you for spending your evening with me, and everybody who's listening to the recording. This is Dance Talk.
Guys.
Yes, thank you. This is Dance Talk with Joanne Carey, and my guest is Valarie Josue. We wish her well, and it's okay to be okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you again, Valarie. Talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye, guys.